What's up, New Phoenixes? Thanks so much for tuning in to Elon's live on air Are You Ready web series. For those of you who have participated in past sessions, we're glad you're back. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, you're in luck because all of our previous sessions are available on our website. Visit elon.edu/areyourready, go to the schedule page, and check out all the links to see the information that students have shared with us so far this summer. I'm Lori Shackle, and today I'll be your host for this session. As you watch the show, on the right should be a Q&A panel. And if you submit your questions there, I will prompt the wonderful guests we have today, and they will answer live on air. The purpose of these on-air sessions is to connect current Elon students, staff, and faculty with you, the incoming students. In trying to prepare you for intellectual climate at Elon, we're hoping that this information helps you take advantage of all the opportunities Elon offers and really make the most of your first year here. Our topic today is intellectual and inclusive community at Elon. We have some great students and staff who are going to jump into discussion with us in a minute. We have Matthew Antonio Bosch here. He is the Director of Gender and LGBTQIA Center at Elon. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that center and what you do?
Great. So LGBTQIA stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, queer, intersex, ally, and asexual. And so that covers a lot. And what we really strive to do is to promote education, student support, and campus climate at Elon around LGBTQIA topics and identities.
Okay, great. And we have a couple students with us too. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Paloma. I am a rising junior, and my major is biology, and at Elon I am a diversity ambassador for admissions, and then I am also affiliated with the Greek organization.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Pianza. I'm going to be a senior this year. My major is in the Public Health Studies department, and through my work on student government as well as my personal interests as a student here, I've been really involved with the intellectual climate kind of movement here on campus.
Great, so experts in the field, wonderful. So to start off, what does intellectual climate mean and how is it related to inclusive community and diversity and all these big phrases we hear at Elon?
Good question. So intellectual climate is hard to define. I think the best working definition that we've come up with has been kind of the combination or marriage of your social life and your academic life. But it's going to be different for everybody. The things that you're interested in are going to contribute to your intellectual climate, and finding out what other people's intellectual fascinations might be is going to be what contributes and kind of helps grow and cultivate our intellectual climate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I definitely think intellectual climate means you're learning not only more about yourself, but also about the people around you with the help of others. So others are helping you see things differently because of the experiences that they've gone through, as well as the experiences that you've gone through yourself.
And I would say with regards to diversity and inclusion, I really do feel like it includes everyone. There's a big piece around that people sometimes think diversity is a code word for just students of color or just LGBTQIA students. And I would say at Elon, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we're talking about people of majority identities and minority identities. We're talking about people who have visible identities and invisible identities. And so it really crosses the board. And that's why we have things like we have disability services. We have centers around multicultural center, gender and LGBTQIA center. We have academic departments like women's and gender studies doesn't just cover women. I mean, they talk about masculinities and what it means to be male in this world and at Elon. And so I feel like there's a lot there that the intellectual climate, as we think about it, it's really about everyone sort of infusing and engaging around these concepts of feeling included at Elon.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think a lot of it has to do with the diversity of intellect. So it's really kind of including inclusion and diversity and kind of why we're here as Elon students.
Mm-hmm. And you said earlier this topic that we're talking about is co-curricular and academic, and it encompasses all the different experiences that you have at Elon. So how do you live out those values through the honor code and things like that? The honor code is integrity, responsibility, respect, and honesty. So how do you live out those values in connecting all these big experiences?
I think the one that stands out the most to me is respect, just because that not everybody has gone through the same things in life, and the fact that you are able to listen to each other's stories or are able to realize that you have to agree to disagree to a certain extent. Just really points out the fact that you have to respect each and everybody's opinion if it's the same or different from yours.
And with integrity, I feel like you have to own up when you mess up, right? I mean, there are times where we talk with friends or we meet people that we're not familiar with, we say the wrong terms, we mess up sometimes, and we have to have the integrity to kind of name it, claim it, and move on, and not make it the largest thing in the room, but to just say, ouch, I messed that up. And that's one of the things we really teach in our Anti-Defamation League trainings too.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Anti-Defamation League training? We have a question about how students can get involved in inclusive efforts as soon as they get on campus. So.
Sure, absolutely. So we have two separate cadres that have been trained of staff and faculty, and so there's about 50 people who can get together and kind of provide these trainings for students to just kind of have a basis for the terms that we use. You know, different terms you might use in high school are different when you enter college life. And so as we're talking about some of the isms and kind of looking internally to see, okay, we might not have grown up around certain types of people. So how do we begin to have these sort of sensitive dialogues and around topics that can be quite difficult? You know, we have to have sort of that basis of language so that we're all starting from the same page. And I think it really embraces us to say, no matter where you come from on the spectrum, that we all can have diversity conversations. So students and faculty and staff can all sign up. In fact, in winter term, we're doing a really large push with first year students. And so winter term, that'll be in January. So students can feel free ahead of time to kind of pre-register for those around a date and time that works for you. And we make sure, and we might get some awesome facilitators in there to just kind of help people talk about some tough stuff that we're not used to talking about. And it's all part of college life, because that sort of puts you on the path to this idea around global engagement, lifelong learning. Yeah.
Great. So that's one great resource for incoming students to check out. For student experiences, do you have any advice about how to get started contributing to the inclusive intellectual climate right away?
I think the biggest thing for me was, like, I remember moving in as a first year, and right off the bat, like, there were two students that came in, and me and my roommate were both, like, not born in this country, and so they asked us, like, if we wanted to be part of, I believe it's called, like, the SMART mentoring, which is, like, when they pair you with, like, an upperclassman of, like, who's also volunteered to be a mentor. And I know I got paired, and so did my roommate, and it really kind of helped us see that, you know, even in a community where you see a certain type of majority, like, you're still allowed to, like, some, you know, you can still fit in. Like, you know, you can still be a part of, like, Greek life. You can still be a part of, like, any other organization on campus. So I think for me, like, the Smart Mentor program was definitely a way that I felt like I belonged at Elon, and it was kind of like ease my transition into, like, college life.
And that was the Multicultural Center?
Yeah.
I love me some Multicultural Center.
It was.
I think the biggest thing that I wish I had been told coming in as a first year student was to take the time to reflect on like new experiences. I think the reflection piece is really important. It's definitely what brings your in-class life kind of more outside, being able to reflect on everything and be able to, I guess, integrate what you're learning in your class to what you're also experiencing in your dorm rooms or in the cafeteria. So yeah, like, taking the time, it's really easy to get caught up in, I got to get this place really fast. You know, it's easy to get swept up, but having time to be reflective, and I think that's a really important part of, like, learning process.
I think the student organizations really provide a really solid way too. I mean, the ones that I work closest with are, like, EFECT, Elon Feminists, Spectrum, you know, LGBTQIA focused group. You know, but even if you don't find one that's necessarily a cultural organization, I mean, we have tons of student worker opportunities. So being tour guides, for instance, like, as folks who are tour guides, I mean, you would know that you run into people who are definitely quite different, and so you get that experience whether or not it's a sort of a paid student position or whether or not it's a sort of volunteer connection time through a cultural organization.
That's so funny. Actually, we have, like, about 15 minutes before a tour where we kind of just wait, and you don't have your phones, obviously. So just in that little bit of time, I think that's also where, like, little pockets where you can find intellectual climate, like, just time to talk and learn more about each other and ask each other what your favorite Disney movies are. Like, that, those are ways that you can find, like, that kind of community, definitely.
Okay, we have another question about community actually. So, how do students of diverse identities find each other and develop community? So, how would you suggest students go and find similar people?
I think the biggest help, especially at Elon, is the organization fair. Every organization is pretty much lined up, and it goes all the way from like sports, like also cultural organizations. Like I know when I went through like LASA, which is the Latin American Student Organization, like stood out to me because they had like a bunch of Hispanic food, and I love me some Hispanic food, and so I just signed up. So I think like if you are looking to directly connect with people that are like you or different people than you, or you don't have the same beliefs, everything is the organization fair. I think was like the easiest way to do it because it's all lined up right there for you. You can walk through any. You can. I know I went back to Lhasa like multiple times and like just talked to different people. I would see different people every time I would go back. So that's kind of how like I saw like different organizations that would interest me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say the social media presence from a lot of the Elon student organizations is pretty palpable. I mean, there's definitely a sense, like, as we think about diversity in these sort of social categories of sort of race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, faith, disability, et cetera, like, we have to realize the generation that we're in as well, and that a lot of our students, their medium is social media. I mean, that is how folks are getting the messages across, and I think Elon's really prepared to sort of lead us into the next few decades here with connecting folks, both globally and locally, but through a lot of technology that helps students find connections across from one another. We even have something as simple as free stuff. We have a free stuff page where if someone is just trying to get rid of old furniture that they have, things like that. I mean, you can just connect with students that easily.
There's a free stuff
There's
page.
a free stuff page.
Yeah.
Show it to you later. But there's a free stuff page. There's wanted ads. There's all sorts of things, but all of them are searchable on your phone. And so it's really easy so that if folks want to just kind of connect, that's a very kind of informal, it's like your own mini sort of Craigslist sort of thing going on there. But it's cool because then students get to meet other students they otherwise would not connect with. And it's sort of like a, shared exchange thing. It's cool.
For social media especially, I follow Effect on Facebook, and you can tell those students who are posting, I'm not sure who it is, they're so passionate and they're very engaged, and they're always posting different videos and articles, and so if you are interested, those resources are out there, and there's definitely students you can connect with through social media if you want to learn more about it. Okay, great. So what kind of academic opportunities are for Elon students to kind of explore diversity topics?
Sure.
There's
Well,
minors even?
Yeah, definitely. So the Women's and Gender Studies program is a minor. It's an awesome minor. Everyone should think about minoring in Women's and Gender Studies. I'm Women's and Gender Studies minor. And there's so many different kinds of classes that you can be taking to fulfill those credits. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that, but I've loved all of my classes in the Women's and Gender Studies category.
What kind of courses have you taken? Just the
well, there's like sex and gender, which is kind of the basic, more introductory level, and it goes all the way up to kind of a current controversies capstone class. But other than those two classes, I mean, you can really take so many different things. There's women in Islam. I'm taking an upper level GST called childbirth this fall, which I'm pretty excited about. And I don't know, I mean, everything, even some like more like political sciencey classes, American government. There are find ways to include a gendered perspective.
Yeah, WGS stretches across 17 different departments, and so there is a class out there for you if you're really interested in it. They really try to structure the minors in ways that seem accessible for students, and really it's all about trying to get some new perspectives in, right? As we think about innovation, it's sort of the root word nova, meaning new. So as you get new people coming from new backgrounds into the conversation, you're going to start thinking a bit differently, and that kind of prepares you to navigate the intellectual climate here at Elon, seeing things through other lenses and other perspectives you otherwise probably would not. I think there's world languages and cultures, all the different language groupings. We've certainly worked to sponsor films and events with a variety of the academic departments on campus.
I've taken a few religion classes here, and those draw students from all different kinds of beliefs and backgrounds, and some of the biggest aha moments that I've had in those classes are when students disagree respectfully.
Mhm.
And I think the faculty at Elon are great at building that kind of environment where you can respectfully disagree
Mhm.
and get a whole different perspective. And I just do you have any experiences like that where you're just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I didn't even think about that before?
Yeah. I think the biggest example I have for that is I'm not a minor in women's and gender studies, but I know last winter term I took a sex and gender class,
Mhm.
and it was winter term, so it was not even like a full semester. But even during that month, like we saw various documentaries, and one of them I can't exactly like remember the name, but it talked about like masculinity in today's world, and in today's world with like where feminism is really really big, you don't really tend to think so much about like how boys are treated from such a young age to learn how to like be tough, and like crying is a bad thing, and like I never really thought about it in that way. And then like seeing that documentary, it was kind of like a, not to be like strange, but it was kind of like a slap in the face that I had never really seen it that way. I was just, it was so like coming out of that class, like I learned a lot, especially just not only about myself, but it was a packed class, so like all of us like always had to come up with like up to date topics, and so it really put a lot of different things into perspective that I wouldn't have thought of to begin with.
And I've gone into religious studies classes that have requested me to come in and talk about LGBT, and trust me, if you're talking about some sensitive topics, you ain't see nothing until you see one of my workshops in a religious studies class. But it's fun, and it's helped me even work through some of my, the unlearning of some of my even biases about going into places and spaces where I immediately might not feel as welcome, and then being like, this is okay. I have to unlearn that, right? And so like I think that's a lot of what our students go through here, this constant feeling of like, in which spaces do I feel welcome, but also in which spaces do I sometimes have to lower my guard because my guard is up for unknown reasons. And I've felt that even going into presentations, and I appreciate that here at Elon.
So Elon's built this inclusive intellectual climate, but what if there is an incident of bias or prejudice? Are there resources for students if that happens? Who can it go to?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a very robust online bias reporting system. But even beside online, the important thing is that people tell someone. So it's kind of like the airport, right? If you see something, say something. And so whether that's another student leader, your RA, for instance, telling a faculty member, there are places and spaces where, as long as you let folks know that you've seen something that you feel like is a little bit, or maybe it's blatant, who knows? But you want to make sure to really kind of report that, because someone's been hurt, someone's been impacted, and if things aren't done by it, then it seems kind of like it's condoned, like if no one really does it. In my world, inaction is an action. So if we choose to not do anything about that, like if someone wants to call someone a bad word, and regardless of whether or not they even think that that's a bad word, the important thing is that someone might get hurt from that, and that might really seriously impact whether or not they feel like they should stay at Elon. And I want students to always feel, all of us want students to feel that they're at their most comfortable here. We want students to persist. And so when they're here, we want to make sure we create those structures in place so that folks can do that. And then once it's reported, definitely they're contacted immediately, the student who had reported it, and we try as hard as we can to connect and try to find some resolution. And sometimes that involves extra education. If it happens within a res hall, sometimes we talk with the students who are within that res hall so that they are made aware of it, that some of that gossip kind of stops, sort of thing. So
Something that I appreciate is like, we are a small campus, so if something does happen and somebody does tell, it rarely goes unknown. Like it's either like only in the local news or it's on a Facebook post. It is somewhere so that other people are aware of what's happening. So it's not like thrown under the rug or anything like that. And that's something I appreciate, just because we're a small campus, and I feel like we all, whether you were impacted directly by it, we should still know.
And from what I've seen in the past, when an incident does occur, the student body kind of supports whatever group on campus is kind of raising awareness or taking action, like you said.
Absolutely. I'd say it's a lot more kind of grassrootsy. It does come a lot of times from students helping students, rather than, it's just a different feeling, right, when it comes from your peers than when it comes from, it comes from administration. It may feel like, oh gosh, you're forced to do this. But when it comes from students who are like, no, we're standing up because like that was my friend.
Right.
And that's good to see. I mean, then people feel so much more supported about that stuff.
when the passion is like really obvious and it's not because you have to.
Don't mess with my friend.
Yeah.
No, you rally behind your friends. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have a question that just came in. What specific resources are available for transgender students on campus? Specifically, safety, security, restrooms, housing, that kind of
Great.
thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, so we're creating a trans dialogue circle that'll be starting up in the Gender and LGBTQI Center in the fall. Additionally, we have support groups for folks who are coming out, and those are open to people regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity to talk a bit more, and that's in conjunction with some of our health and wellness areas as well. Additionally to that, we just got some awesome news that from Campus Rec. We've been working with Campus Rec and University Athletics, and for our intramural and club sports, if a trans athlete wants to join any sport, that they're allowed to join any sport that aligns with their gender identity. A lot of universities think that that's a really quite a bold move, but our big thing is we want to make sure that no medical documentation is needed. We're not doctors in here, but we want to make sure the students have access to the sports that they want to play. Mm-hmm. And so for a trans athlete, that can sometimes be a real block for them engaging in athletic activity. So we have that as well. We now are up to 32 gender-neutral restrooms across campus, which I'm very proud of. And we've been switching a lot of signage, which is great. And all of this has kind of come from our 3-year LGBTQA strategic plan, which is sort of a campus-wide plan. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We've had trans consultants come to talk a bit about what are some of the places that Elon does well at and that mm-hmm. Elon needs to tighten up, because all universities have those areas, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot going on. It's a lot going on.
Big answer there. Okay. We have another question about the org fair. When is the org fair? Those happen? I don't know. Do you guys know a specific date? I know they happen at the beginning of every fall and spring mm-hmm. semester.
Yeah.
I believe it's I want to say it's like the 12th or the 13th. Okay. It's a Friday.
Tour guide.
Yeah, it's definitely a Friday.
Okay. It's like one of those. Okay. I think it's right after Call to Honor, if I'm correct, but don't quote me.
I like it because they always bring the radio station out there too. And so one time they totally grabbed me. They're like, "You're a random staff member," and they're like, "Talking to this mic and tell people how great the org fair is." I'm like, "Hi everyone!" But that's great because it's that's another org, right? And so it's really important that that we see sort of the breadth and depth, that it's not it's some cultural orgs, it's some social orgs, it's some service orgs, and it's the radio station. Who doesn't want to be on the radio?
And it's all in one place, and that's really exciting. You really get to see what people care about and what they've been working on for the however many years they've been involved. It's a really fun part of the fall for sure.
Mm-hmm. And it happens twice a year, so maybe you didn't want to get involved in the fall, but in the spring you're ready to take something on, and you definitely can, because it also happens in the spring.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we have another question that just says, what's your favorite experience at Elon so far? So tell me about some of your experiences as students, leaders, representatives, as allies, things like that.
Totally. For me, it would just have to be that I joined a Greek organization, just because I had never heard about Greek life before. I didn't really think I was going to do it. But I lived in Danley with 7 other girls, and 6 of them went through recruitment. So I was like, why not? And I think joining my organization really helped me find my place at Elon, because I have a very good balance between my social life, which is having various leadership positions within that organization, and then my academic life, which is being really focused when it comes to schoolwork. So for me, joining this organization has given me that balance, because within that organization I get to have leadership positions, but I also kind of made a huge bond with a huge group of girls that I know will be there for pretty much the rest of my life. So I think that for me has been so far the best experience and the best decision that I've made while at Elon.
Great.
So I talk about student government all the time, but I love student government. I have been really challenged by student government. I think it's definitely been the thing that has taken me out of my comfort zone the most. That's where I find my friends are in student government, but I think I have really difficult conversations as a part of student government, and not always the most pleasant experiences. You definitely experience dissonance with that, maybe tension, but being able to have really rewarding conversations with people who really, really disagree with me is something that I really valued a lot. And that's definitely something that student government has given me. And I really do think that you can find that in lots of different kinds of organizations, whether that's going to be cultural or social, religious. I think you find places where you can have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I would even say like both of us are tour guides, and even in the tour guide office, like when we're just sitting down and just some random topic comes up and everybody puts in their own 2 cents, like nobody ever really stays quiet. And even though sometimes we share the same ideas, sometimes we don't. So it's like just really nice. Literally anywhere on campus where you get a group of students, you're always going to realize that everybody's willing to have that conversation, whether it's something as easy as like, oh, what are you guys doing today? Or it's a hard conversation, but people still bring it up.
Mm-hmm. One of the experiences that's been the biggest for me in terms of growing intellectually at Elon has been attending all the different events that Elon puts on. So we have speakers come all the time who are experts in their field and very intelligent and well-spoken, and then seeing them live, and then afterwards talking about that in your dorm with your friends or going to the coffee clutch and having those difficult conversations, that really pushed me on my comfort zone as well. And it's been great to have that like respectful environment, like I was saying earlier. So definitely agree. Okay, so we have another question. We have just a few minutes left, so get this one in there. What are some more resources for students of color with respect to developing community? Can either of you speak to that?
Definitely the multicultural center.
Yeah.
There are so many different, I think, kind of things that fall below the multicultural center. One of my favorites is DEEP, which is an organization that will host like topics, like conversations around certain topics. I'm not sure how frequently. It's like monthly. I think it's pretty. They do it a few times each semester. I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes faculty will request them as well. I mean, there's the Black Cultural Society is really active on campus too. And then you've got LASSO, you've got which is the Latin American Student Organization. We now have a new Asian resource room as well, which is now in addition to the African American Resource Room, the Hispanic Latino Resource Room, which shares space with the LGBTQI Center. Hey, shout out to the HLRR. Yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, not only that, but socially too, like NPHC, which are like historically Black sororities or fraternities. So I think there is definitely a lot of organization involvement overall.
Okay, I'm going to add some more information on our website. We'll add links and stuff if you go to the Are You Ready website. Okay, so to wrap it up real quick, do you have any other advice for incoming students about how to engage intellectually inclusive community-wise? Any other points you want to drive home? Make sure they heard it.
I think coming to Elon with an open mind and being prepared to just be authentic and have authentic conversations, and then you'll have real relationships with people and you'll be learning and hopefully have a great 4 years.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely come with an open mind. And also kind of with the whole authentic thing, don't be afraid to speak your mind. Like, be yourself. This is a great community to be a part of. Sarah's been here 4 years. I've been here 3 years, and so far we've only had, good experiences when it comes to that. Sure, sometimes tough times, but definitely we always get something out of it.
I'd say be fierce in who you are. Just own it, own it, and take a risk. Meet someone new, do something different. Go to a country that all your life you've been waiting to go to one country, and then at the last minute you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to break the mold and go to another one. Do something different. I think that's really ultimately when I hear Elon students talk about the Elon experience, that's the piece. It was that last minute decision to try something new, to go with their roommate to a random event that made them suddenly think about world politics in a completely different way. That's the stuff that Elon's made of. And so we hope that you will be part of it.
Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. That's all we have for the Intellectual and Inclusive Community session, but we have another session tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. We will be discussing the Truett Center for Spiritual and Religious Life at Elon. So be sure to tune into that. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.